conventional banking system. So we have around 110. Sometimes we call it also 140 million people of Ethiopia. So there are different religion and different ethnics are there. So one issue is that the financial access is limited. So unemployment issue is so high. People are unemployed. So I'm thinking this in considering that not only those of one religious or Muslims, when we think about interest-free banking, it's more of about the Muslims, but I'm thinking to try to see the perception, the behavior of Ethiopians, the whole Ethiopians, those who have conventional bank and those who have interest-free bank accounts. Even I saw recently in 2021 one research that some of those interest-free products are not got acceptance by even by the Muslims. There are not lack of awareness how to use. Even there is on the bank side how to provide, how to handle these issues are little known. So I'm thinking this area. So when I think about the data, it's full of, I'm trying to go to the public by survey data. I'm trying to thinking about 500 people's account holders and the other to the, so it will be
let me ask you a question, because, you know, remember when we go through these presentations, you have to have a research question, a very formal research question. So one of the things that I want to see when you do your presentation next week or whatever, everyone provides is that, you know, we kind of went through all these papers, try to understand what is the structure of a proper research paper question. So, you know, we saw the formality of that, and everybody did a very good job. You know, there's an introduction, kind of giving a description of the area. Then there's a literature review. So this has a well-defined literature review. And then there is a research question. And then, when I hear you talking, right, it's very interesting, right?
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to pick out what is the research question. So my question to you, what is your research question that you're asking here?
Yeah, my question is that because of there is access to finance problem. There is a problem of access to finance. This is new. So my question is related to about the attitudes of customers, bank holders, how they feel to adapt to use this type of interest-free banking product in the service. What there is about, it goes to kind of behavioral, so subjective attitudes, perception, and so on. So in the middle, I will be confused. My topic is going to be some kind of management issue rather than becoming to finance. But in the middle, I feel that it's because of finance is some kind of interdisciplinary. So we share from when we talk when I talk about the bank customers, it also goes about the marketing issue. So this time in the middle, I will be confused. Regarding what is purely finance or it's purely marketing issue. I'm going to raise. Somebody has also told me that your topic will be some kind of management issue, because I'm going to raise the issue of theory of planned behavior. It's the issue of reasonable action theory. Even in recently, I'm thinking about the theory of technology acceptance. This is because in last article review, we learned about financial technology. So in the financial technology, so banks are becoming online. So this is also about inclusion of technology as part of these issues. Also bring some kind of interdisciplinary nature of my topic.
Okay.
So I'm afraid that is why
Dr.
I'm.
Jared, Dr. Jared, why don't you comment first? I want to see what your comments are first about this idea.
The idea looks good, but as he said, it is gravitating towards management, but you have to define in terms of finance. Like, for example, I was thinking, so are there Islamic banking in Ethiopia? Definitely there are the traditional banks which charge interest. And if you say these new banks interest free, they don't charge any interest on loans, how can they survive? So in Islamic banking, although they don't call it interest, they charge it somehow. They don't call it interest because of Islamic principles. It is just like, under the socialist system, I don't know if you know about that, they don't call it profit. They call it extra value or something, value created or something like that. But the term is just a matter of terminology. So here you need to measure. So how could those banks survive if they don't charge interest? And also, do they give interest on deposits? Okay. So if you look at that, how much interest do they give on deposits? How much interest do the other banks give on deposits? Maybe you can do a comparative analysis on performance, and then because of that, how much customers do they attract? Like, do people shift from the regular bank to the Islamic banking as a result of this interest-free? Maybe if it is just a perception, or you need to measure also how much they really charge indirectly. Okay. So the impact on the depositors and the customers, the borrowers, the impact on performance comparison between the Islamic banking and the regular banks. Excuse me. So that those are possible hypotheses, which is more finance oriented.
Okay, my comment is, if I were hearing you speak at a conference, I would want to know what theory that comes from. Now, you mentioned this theory of technological acceptance. Okay, that's interesting, but that is not a pure finance theory. So now I have to ask myself: are you a finance person, or are you a socioeconomist? What are you? Now I have a question. What are you? So, and that's interesting because now you're saying, okay, which is fine, but now we have to kind of think, is that pure finance? And is finance is changing. So you mentioned financial technology, Bitcoin, those things there, but pure finance and teaching finance, or where the value is, that we all know that in finance, that asset pricing is king. People that can do asset pricing investments, they make the big dollars. Banking is a little step down. Investment banking kind of trumps banking per se, in most cases. In terms of the big boys. So, you have to. I think somewhere as you're proposing your research, you also want to have some blend of finance. You have to get into some type of, as that Dr. Jared's getting into, you have to get into the institutional aspect of it. So then you're kind of spanning that to banking. So we can say at least that you're a banker. So all of us are classified or identified in a particular area of expertise. That's my point. And so I think you need to think about that as you do your dissertation. That how you're going to label yourself or project yourself as being an expert in a particular field, and what's that going to mean in terms of employment? Are you going to be a banking teacher? You're going to be that, or private sector? I don't know the answer to those questions, but that's the way that people will view you. And so you got to think about that as you're picking this topic, what that means to you. So,
and also it will become like an Ethiopian case, because there are many papers done on Islamic finance.
And so,
like
to me now, when I think of actually starting to study Islamic finance, and my area that I was starting to collect data was on the Sukuk, which is their type of government a corporate bond. And that data is available in terms of Sukuk, in terms of what that means, in terms of, as you mentioned, in terms of interest free or so forth. But, you know, it has, you know, I don't think that we understand a lot about that. But if you do that now, people are looking at you as a corporate bond person in the Islamic world, you know? And so you need to think about that, you know, in terms of how that.
May I say something?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sure.
Actually, this form of banking is not separate banking. Starting from 2011, Ethiopia is putting one window system of a separate bank account for interest free. But it started as 2019. Now there is a separate banking, full-fledged interest-free banking system is started. Now the idea is new. But the industry is growing. Even I was referring some literatures from the Ugandans, are also Kenyans in East Africa. So in UK, it's also growing. In America also, there is such an alternative banking system is growing. So yes, it's a model of different from the conventional banking system because it doesn't charge interest rather than it is profits loss sharing modalities they are using. So in the conventional banking system, we when we give loans, so the no sharing of risk. Though when the business make a profit, the banks will share the profit. When the business got loss, no loss sharing. The modality is different. My big question is, as a student, I'm referring different websites. Some of the websites are publishing these issues, non-interest financing. So some of them there are a separate journal of Islamic finance and so on. Even there are in big journals, there are publication. But my worry is that can it be publishable when I go to ask people's survey of different people's, not the one you are mentioning is using World Bank database, Federal Reserve database. It looks different. I'm going to go to the bottom of the people, ask them, can you use this product? Why don't you use? So they may mention the issue of religious. I'm not a Muslim in the soul, despite of they're afraid of to pay the interest in the soul. So my question about the Dr. Demisme can help me. Can it be publishable when you go to bring data from survey? I saw one PhD dissertation from Malaysia, one also from UK, and only 3 or 4 dissertation which is in the same subject I'm going to deal. Can it be publishable in the finance journals and so on?
Yeah, it is publishable. It depends on your hypothesis, how different your hypothesis is. And then when you collect data, you are doing your own questionnaire. So you need to have a valid, you have to do that validity and the internal consistency test when you gather this kind of data. Otherwise, actually, this survey kind of data is more interesting nowadays than simply downloading the data and doing analysis. So the main thing is your hypothesis and what question do you answer? What research question do you answer? So if you have that and it is distinct, it is publishable.
Okay, Desalim, can you hear me? I think you're next up. Desalim, Ms. Mosisa?
Sorry.
Is he available? Okay, while he's up, Ms. Kadis, can you give us a, because I think I'm gonna use our next class just for you to ask questions because, I think it's very important that your presentation again gets to this point of what is your research question? And so I want to go around and see, Ms. Kadis, what is your research question that you're going to present next week?
Thank you. Actually, there is some call, therefore, can you hear me?
Yes, sure.
As we said on previous week, I propose to do research on corporate social responsibility on banking industry, and mostly this concept related with the disclosures of this corporate social responsibility on Ethiopian banking industry. The reason why I want to do research on here, the first one is when we compare the database, or from where I got the data in Ethiopian context now, betterly, we got data from the banking industry. That is why I select to do research on banking industry. Why I want to do research on corporate social responsibility. And now in Ethiopian context, there are a lot of ethical, social, environmental issues. And all these issues, on my assumption, must be solved by cooperations of different institutions, different individuals, other than or in addition to the government unit. Therefore, that is why I want to do research on here. I propose, or I want to do research as an objective. The first one is, what is the impact of corporate social responsibility disclosure on financial performance? May some banking industry disclose their financial corporate social responsibility on the financial report with clearly, briefly, and some others may report on a single word or in a single paragraph. Therefore, the effects, may one company disclose their activity on corporate social responsibility has effect on financial performance or not? May some company disclose their corporate social responsibility with a single word or with a single activity, or simply for incorporate on reports of that financial statement has effects or not? Therefore, the first objective is to check the impact of corporate social responsibility on this financial performance of banking industry. That is my objective.
Okay, Dr. Jarrell, I'll let you go first.
Just one question I have is this disclosure legally required, or they just do by themselves?
When I talk with one individual that doing activity or management activities of the bank, and he said informally, the government wants to put or to disclose our issue related with corporate social responsibility on our financial statements. But I'm trying to get some information. Even on their reports, some company disclose clearly, some company keep silent.
But is there a law? Is there a law by the government that says they have to disclose this?
I didn't get clearly.
You have to search that if there is a government mandated legal imposition, or they do that voluntarily. And also,
actually, sorry, sir, you go on.
Yeah, so if there is also government requirement, legal requirement, is there any consequence if some violate and they don't disclose? And then to what extent do they disclose more than what is required? Those are the issues you have to really address. How do you measure the performance? Impact on performance. How do you measure the bank performance? That's another thing.
I propose to add some variables, some controlling variables other than this corporate social responsibility, like size of the business.
No, yeah, you may control for that, but how do you measure their performance?
financial performance.
Yeah, it has to be some kind of rate of return, profitability.
Yeah, return on assets. I propose to do to measure based on return on assets.
Okay, Mulo, you have a comment?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just to say that I think engaging on social responsibility and then having a report on the financial statements is not a mandatory legal requirement in Ethiopia. Whether it is a financial institution or not, engaging on social responsibility is something that companies are normally engaging out of their management strategy and business objective than being a government required endeavor of those companies. And in fact, probably there are some specific rules on financial institutions, like, for example, they're required to spend some 2% or so of their profit of the year on, employee development, like training and the like. That is a legal requirement, and otherwise engaging on a social responsibility is not a legal requirement as far as I know. One. And secondly, maybe this, if you are going to base on the financial statement, I think this issue becomes more of an accounting issue than an actual measurement of how far companies or financial institutions really engage on social responsibilities, because the fact that one is properly reporting or not may not exactly show how far that company is engaged on corporate social responsibilities, as reporting is inhibited by many factors than the actual act or otherwise of the company.
My comment is that, once you start talking about disclosure is a field in and of itself of how information is processed. And as Mr. Mullen is saying, that if that information is not processed by a financial market and is by some type of backwards looking indicator, people are going to criticize. So you have to be prepared for that criticism that you're using financial statement data, which may not have a possibility of capturing this information process that you're saying that, that somehow there's disclosure because disclosed. It may or may not matter the profitability. We don't know because there really is no mechanism for determining it. And so this goes back to the whole point that I'm trying to make about the research presentation, is that whether we like it or not, in some way your research,
Dr. Dennis,
your research question must come from
he's talking.
Some type of
may I say something?
Formal theory, So, it's that, once you start talking disclosure also implies that there's some type of monitor or certification. And so when you start talking about corporate responsibility, who is the monitor? Who is monitoring? Why are they monitoring? What are the incentives? How do they impose discipline? If there's no market discipline, how do they influence? And I'm not saying that you cannot answer those questions, but when you go to market, people are going to ask that question, and so it's something you should think about for next week.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe Professor Leonard?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
May I take this opportunity? Most of us at this very particular point in time, I don't think we have a very consolidated and concretized PhD proposal, including myself. And it is my kind request to you that you may give us some time, I don't know, some 15 days or so that we can come up with, a proposal that we can better define. And so it would be also very comfortable to you to give comments on those proposals of ours, which are,
Yeah, I understand.
probably
This
well
is not
prepared.
this class is not for your PhD proposal. This is just for you to develop the skills to achieve that. So we're not saying that you have to have a PhD proposal by the end of this class or for next week. The question is, how do you work through that process? It's a process. And so, part of the process is maybe, finding that, maybe your current idea is not the idea. That could be just as valuable, And so, the whole, it's a journey. So the point is that you wanna go on the journey. It'd be good if you didn't go on the journey alone. And that's what I'm trying to think about, how I can help as best I can, is to partner you with someone in your area that has access to maybe things that you don't have access to. And then maybe that will, so there's ways to do that. It's not always easy, but it doesn't hurt to try. We can write some letters to people, say, hey, I have some students here, they're working on this. Are you willing to help, or so forth, that kind of stuff. And, a lot of people may say no, but that's how you kind of determine your determination to keep going, And then I think it's possible. If I was still working at VCU, I know it'd be very easily done, because people like to have, PhD students do a lot of the hard work. And I think, maybe Dr. Gerald, maybe you want to comment on that in terms of how we might try to partner. Then I'd like to continue our discussion. So Mr. Gurman, can you get ready to talk next? And then I will come back to you, Mr. Mulna, about what you're going to do. But Dim, so you want to talk about this idea of trying to partner, how we might try to do that, and what you think we could do?
Yeah, that depends on, the topic area, and also if there are people willing to partner. Like if people, see, like I knew you and we chatted, and that's how you ended up knowing them and taking on this class. So it depends. Like I myself tried to partner to work with people, but sometimes the people, if they have access to data, they have their own data. What is that? I contribute. I have to really have some good idea to attract them.
Mm-hmm.
So it is tough. But I want to comment on this idea. That disclosure in Ethiopia, since it is not really widely distributed, it may not have much impact except on the people who have that report. And those people are what? Maybe the owners. I think there are shareholders, but there is no public trading of the shares, so there is no instant market reaction to that disclosure or non-disclosure. But you can think of measuring, like, do people invest, do the shareholders, for example, abandon the banks that do not disclose, or the banks that are unethical? Not just about their performance, the profitability, but on the market, do depositors go away from those banks? Do borrowers go away from those banks and gravitate towards the banks that are ethical or that make disclosure? So, try in those areas.
Okay, Mr. Gurman, why don't you give us an idea of what your thoughts are?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Okay, welcome, Dr. Damas.
Thank you.
I'm happy having you today with us. Okay, when I come to my point, actually, I'm wondering, searching for titles, starting from the day I determined to join a finance program. But much of the research workers are basically focused on companies or maybe bankers. But at PhD level, we need, and all of others may expect from us, a little bit some advanced workers. And, I may see some titles which may be appropriate for this program level, but the problem, as it is clear for you, there is a problem of data. In the first, I was looking on one title, if that is maybe possible for me to carry out and go through the whole project. It was, look, the choice, financing choices and investment spending. The dependent variable I determined to do is on the investment spending. And the independent variables, of course, there are a number of determinants or factors that may affect the investment spending. But before that, I want to see the investor's choice, which financing source they may want to choose. So in doing so, actually there are two choices, either to borrow from certain bankers or creditors, or to finance by themselves. So to do this, we need to have a data. Actually, for the borrowing, it's possible to take the bank lending rate as a proxy. But the problem is we don't have cost of equities since there is no stock market in the country. So that is very challenging for me even to go with this title. And regarding the other factors after determining the choice of financing, then what factors may determine the investment spending? You know, here in Ethiopia, we don't have such law that may encourages a property right of an individuals, but still a property right protection has a contribution for investment spending. Even if we have financing sources, individuals may hesitate to put their money or to expand their businesses. And the other variable that I was thinking in my mind is the control. If the people are willing to let their businesses or share to the other new stockholders, they may make it available, the share of the company to a new investors. But if they want to control the business, so they may not willing to go and look for additional financing from bankers and other creditors. So these are some of the variables. Actually, I will collect and look for other additional independent variables, maybe in the coming few days for the presentation purpose. But again here, because of the difficulties of the measurement, still I am looking on other titles. You know, in Ethiopia, we do have the ECX, the Ethiopian Commodity Exchange, and the trading system currently is shifted to online trading. Originally, it was outcry, but because of some transparency and fairness issues, the organization is shifted it to the online trading. But that problem still there, as I have got some information from unions which trade their commodities in the ECX. So what now I'm looking into another title is, if it is possible, I want to do a research on commodity market and corporate governance, how the market may be regulated so that we will have fair and transparent market in Ethiopia that will achieve the objective of the establishment. But still, it is a headache for me. I don't know where to go. And I'm happy, and I will listen to you in open mind, whatever you will tell me, and wherever to look for. And that I may expect from you to suggest to me some titles or areas to work with.
Dr. Jao?
Well, you know, we have been talking, you have to come up with your own title. You have to come up with your research title. But here you mentioned the two actually. One is financing choices and investment spending, and the other is on the commodity exchange. So you came up with two titles right there. It is only about identifying a specific question that you want to test in the form of hypothesis testing. So in the first one, I was thinking, what are financing choices in the country actually? I'm assuming you are talking about companies. So if they have investment opportunity, which I believe are plenty, what are the financing choices other than borrowing from bank?
Yeah, the only other option is investors' contribution.
Yeah, out of pocket, and
Yeah.
or if they create share company and bring in shareholders. So anyway, you are moving toward this the capital structure, isn't it? Maybe
Yeah.
some of them have. You can theoretically think from 100% equity financing to 100% debt financing if they borrow all the money. So what are you measuring? Investment choice? Does the financing influence investment choice? Or is that just they have investment idea, they want to invest, and then they want to raise capital? Will that impact performance? That is one other thing you may consider. Does financing choice influence the performance of the investment? I'm sure first investment comes, isn't it? Their investment idea, and then they look for financing.
Oh.
So, and then the data, is it available?
Yeah, that is a headache.
Yeah, if you know the people and collect enough sample, like in the form of survey or whatever, like this said and Abdullah said earlier, from the people can you collect? Probably it is easier because you can convince those investors that your research may help them. And then they give you data, how they financed it, how they came up with their idea, and how they invested in what area, what sector. And you know, that may help them too.
Yeah. You know,
Dr.
question?
James,
yeah,
Dr.
Abdullah, yeah.
May I get?
Well, yeah, sure.
Yeah, because our discussion is all about research idea, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I was thinking now I'm restricted to myself to this interest-free banking, but I was thinking alternative one research idea. When we were learning economic analysis, or we got data from World Enterprise Survey.
Yeah.
Yeah, from that, we were analyzing different variables, firm growth. So at that time, what was coming to my mind was about Ethiopian manufacturing companies' performance. So maybe someone from our group may put it as a variable or not, I don't know. Ethiopian manufacturing companies, how they are performing, if they are growing, if they are productive. I think it will also, maybe somewhere, it will be a research idea. Another issue was what was I have raised an alternative. There is a partnership between governments and a private partnership. How it's operating, this also can be a research idea. Even the one I mentioned previous, Ethiopian manufacturing companies' performance. There is a variable in the enterprise survey data. Productivity variables are there. So if someone is interested in that area, there is we may measure the firm growth of those manufacturing companies by putting the employment growth in terms of their sales growth, and so on. This can be an idea. I'm bringing this issue to the table.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. But getting back to Mr. Gurman, I think you kind of know. I sense your frustration, and I know, the effort would be there to, collect the data of that, but the United States banking used to have a very rich literature and this idea of efficiency and so forth. And that data is still very, very there. It's a literature that is not, it's kind of fallen out of favor, but this whole idea of something called X-efficiency. X-efficiency, it can be applied to the area of investments. And the data is, as I pointed out earlier, the public data in the United States is readily available by the Federal Reserve. And then, as we know, there are equity markets in the United States. So the question does the market price efficiency? Has never really been answered appropriately. And so, I think there's ways to get at investment type questions through banking data. And banking data is available. And so, it would have to be a large scale study in terms of if you pick the appropriate, let's say, there are reasons that you could say you could only focus, say, on the large banks. So we know that in the United States, like the top 25 banks, the top 50 banks, that allows you to have a very concise study that you can focus on. That data is available. It's easy to get their productivity measure. And then from there, you kind of to think about pricing mechanism. And then if you could find someone that you could partner with that would maybe allow you to leverage into some type of journal, that's a decent strategy to work on. That would be my suggestion, then banging your head against the wall in terms of, a data collection process that may not be accepted or it's going to be attacked, and you could position yourself as a generalist, because you do some finance, you do some banking, something like that as a combination. And then I think if you can then partner with somebody, then that gives you a good background. So just something to think about. That would be my suggestion.
Thank you, Professor.
Mr. Muller, why don't you go? Why, Mr. What's your thoughts? No, I think you already. Okay. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. In fact, the proposal I have at hand is a proposal related to taxation, as I told you last time. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, with this regard, I just wanted to check some of the factors which determine the tax compliance behavior of companies. And my intention is, to check whether the tax compliance behavior of companies is different depending on their different characteristics, probably size, it could be age, other and other important factors. And I just wanted to check, 2 or 3 basic hypotheses on this. One is whether, compliance cost is a variable affecting the compliance behavior, one. And secondly, I just also wanted to check whether organizational culture of the companies is affecting their tax compliance behavior. And the third variable, in fact, a variable which I, just immersed myself is the political attitude, inclination, patriotism, you know, or something related to that, if that could affect the compliance behavior of the taxpayers. And in fact, this is going to be, again, a survey type of research where I'm going to collect a representative type of data from all companies, you know, which could satisfy my variables in terms of size, in terms of age, and even in terms of sector of the companies. So I just wanted to check if these three factors, like the tax compliance cost, organizational culture, and you know, the political attitude, and something related to that could affect the tax compliance behavior of corporate or company taxpayers. In fact, this is not an individual taxpayer's behavior, where most of the tax literature normally is related to individual taxpayers. Mine will be a study on, you know, company company taxpayers than an individual taxpayer. This is the topic I have, and this is, you know, the proposal I have at hand, starting from the date I joined the PhD program. But I'm not sure how I am going to able to get a good hand to support me on this and related topic. This is the topic that I'm inclined to.
Okay, Dr. Jara?
Well, it looks a good topic, but I don't know how you are going to measure this. And one thing which came to my mind right away is, do the companies have a choice of not complying with the tax? Or if they are not if they are not complying with the tax law, yeah, if they are not complying, who is going to tell you that they are not complying? Or how do you determine whether they comply or not? This is something illegal if they don't comply, so they face punishment and they are not going to tell you. How are we going to measure that non-compliance itself? And then the other is, you know, political attitude. All those are basically, other than the compliance cost. I don't know if in that cost, how you calculate it, are very subjective. And I don't know if anybody can tell you the truth even.
Okay, yeah, my comments are, you know, let me get mine and then you can respond to both. I think, you know, I think you have a good background. The question: are you taking advantage of your background to the best of your ability? And you know, this area is it gets murky very quick. It's almost like a sociology paper in some ways. You know, it's kind of, you know, you need to think about that in terms of, do you want to be viewed that broadly, or do you want to be viewed as a specialist? That's the point. And I think, you know, most of the times we do a PhD, it's the time to specialize, you know, because you can always be general, but you want to show that you have an advantage in a particular area of your area of expertise, you know, and whether that is by category, investment or banking, or a particular technical skill. So I think, you know, you need to think about that, you know, in terms of very simply put, what is your comparative advantage to everybody else? You have to distinguish yourself relative to the rest of the field, that you have a comparative advantage. And you pose a very interesting question, right? You know, those are all very interesting questions, but they're very general, and they don't give me an idea of your specialty. That would be my point. I don't know if you want to respond or so forth.
Okay. By their general, Professor Daniels, was I supposed to be very particular within the tax field itself, or
No, you don't have to. You could be, that's one way to look at it. It's just that, the topic is a combination of things. You talk about politics, you talk about taxes, you talk about organizational structure, and it goes to the whole point of, when you go to these conferences, people are very particular about what you do. So they're going to say, what is the theory of all this? How does this hang together? How does tax theory hang with political theory? How does tax theory hang with organizational structure? It's usually one or the other. That people are specializing that. It's almost like a vertical asylum of the question, whereas you're doing comparatively across several different spectrums. And so, the question is, what is the theory that, when you talk about this, it becomes complicated very quickly, because you're talking about political theory, you're talking about tax theory, you're talking about management theory. That's three theories. So people are going to say that, well, you're not really specializing in any individual sphere. You're talking about several things. So I think and that's okay. It's okay to do that. But the point is that more than likely, people are going to, they're going to want to see specificity in terms of some type of design to overcome that. So you can do that with something that's well designed. You can overcome that, because it's okay to borrow from different paradigms, but people are going to be very picky on your research design. So that's kind of the point.
Yeah, you are right. It's a kind of, somehow multidisciplinary. It merges two important theories in tax, the economic and the social one, the socio-political one.
Right.
The socio-political one.
Yeah.
And one more.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Professor Daniels. To make it very particular to finance, the second topic that I was thinking of over this week after our discussion last time was related to the banking sector and its operation. And I meant to look into whether, bank regulations are affecting efficiency of banks. The different regulations.
Yeah.
The different regulations that are being issued by national banks or any national jurisdiction within which banks are normally operating is positively or negatively affecting the efficiency of banks.
Yeah, good topic. Okay, Ms. Bugali, I think
Question?
Hold on, I want to see if can we get can anybody see is Mosina? Is he available? Because I don't think he's talked yet. Is he available to chat? Is he there?
Professor.
Mosisa just talked.
Hold on, let me see if we can get Mosina. What'd you say? What about him?
Okay, we'll call him.
Mosisa said he has a very unstable connectivity.
Okay.
He just gave me a text message that he's trying to join.
Okay, all right.
Professor.
Yes, go ahead.
Before we pose the Mulune's question. Can I ask one question?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, about number of variable. He's mentioning.
Hello?
Oh, go ahead. Let's give Mosina. Yeah, we hear you, Mosina. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, we hear you. Go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead. You have the floor. Go ahead.
I think it's a connection problem.
Yeah, go ahead. You go ahead. Abdullah, go ahead.
Okay, it's about number of variable. Mulune is mentioning about to deal with 3 variables.
Yeah.
In my case, when I was thinking about number of variable or hypothesis, it's becoming more than 10, around 15 variables I'm going to deal. So it's kind of creating a structural equation model. So is there some kind of number of variables are matters? How much is large, how much is few? So when we are learning about investment in the portfolio analysis, we learned about the issue of single index model and the multiple index models. So there is different arguments. Sometimes single index model is good. Sometimes the multiple index is well measured the requirement. So for us, when I was teaching undergraduate, advising them, I will advise them to bring them only few questions, 2 or 3 in like that, to be specific. So in our case, how much variable is too large? How much variable is too few? Is there some kind of rule of thumb?
No rule of thumb. This is a science in of itself. You know, there's something called parsimony. And when there's something called parsimony, you know, you can, the question is that you can exactly identify a system by the number of variables. And, you know, there's different ways of doing that. And we saw that in the credit default swap paper in terms of there's a technique in there. Doesn't matter, but the whole point of it's called identification. You know, a system can be identified by, you know, what's called the rank order, you know, and it's actually a theory. You talk about structural equation modeling. Structural equation modeling, it gets into this whole idea of identification. And you know, whether using principal component analysis, you know, principal components would tell you the number of components that matter or the number of factors that matter. So you can have 15 variables, but maybe only 2 or 3 matter because of the components that have weight. That's a simple way to think about it. But, you know, it actually gets more complex, and, you know, it's one of the points that I'm trying to make to you in this whole thing of presentation, that when you present, you don't know who's going to be in the audience. You know, there could be a world scholar in the audience looking at your paper and says, oh, well, you know, that's not right, you know, because of, you know, this theory and that theory, and he would be correct. So you have to try to read as much as possible, know as much as possible your particular area in terms of, you know, we all have weaknesses. It's not that we don't have weaknesses, but, you know, you like to camouflage them so that people do not pick you apart for particular reasons. And so, you know, just like in the question that you asked me, that shows me that you need to read some more about structural equations. You need to do a little more reading. And so,
Actually,
go ahead.
go ahead. What Mulunhe talked about is about hypothesis, not the number of variables.
No, I'm talking about Abdullah.
No, Abdullah was questioning based on, he raised that based on Mulunha's. So if you are talking about the number of variables you can put, like even if it is a single equation you are running regression about, how many variables can you put in? It depends on how many observations you have also. If the number of observations is large, you have large data, then you can fairly put in. There is a statistical technique that determines if you have only few observations, then you cannot include many variables. You can check some statistical rules about that. And what Ken is talking about identification is if you are running structural, like the multi-equation, simultaneous equation kind of testing, simultaneous equation model, then you deal with identification. So there are different things that that are mentioned around between you, Mulun, and Ken. Identification is when you have simultaneous equation system. The number of variables you can include in a single equation depends on how many observations you have, and also make sure the variables are not correlated themselves. Multicollinearity is an important issue. Yeah, I think, yeah, and then the number of hypotheses that you can test, as many hypotheses as you come up with.
Okay, Ms. Bagali, why don't you give us your thoughts?
Okay, thank you, Professor Daniels. Can you listen to me?
Yes, sure.
Okay, Dr. Demso, thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
So actually, I'm having 2 research ideas in my mind. The first one is about the impact of capital structure choices on firm's performance, and the second one is about commodity future markets in Ethiopia. But I'm currently working on the first one. It's about the impact of capital structure choices on financial performance. So in this, I wanted to investigate the relationship between the choice of the capital structure with that of the firm's performance, especially financial performance. That is what I wanted to create a relationship. So companies can have two types of capital structure. They may have debt capital, they may have equity capital also. So at what proportion are they financing their asset? And because of that, how the financial performance of the company will be affected, either positively or negatively. So I'm thinking of creating a relationship between these two items. So the financial performance measures will be taken as a dependent variable, like I'm thinking of having 4 financial performance measures: return on asset, return on equity, return on investment, and the earning per share. And as an independent variable, the capital structure that the company wants to have, like equity financing. With regard to debt, we can have short term as well as long term. So this mix will be there in the capital structure. So how this will be related to the firm's financial performance. And I'm also thinking of control variables like the firm size and firm growth. So I'm trying to do this in Ethiopian banking sector and taking national bank's database or the financial statement of each of these, especially the private commercial banks in Ethiopia. That's what I'm thinking of.
Dr. Jared, go first.
Well, actually, it is a combination of what we discussed based on what others said earlier, capital structure and the performance. So I think as long as you get the data, looks fine to me.
Yeah, I guess the first question I have for you is, what are your thoughts on doing the same idea on U.S. data? Are you opposed to doing that?
Yes, Professor Daniels?
Yeah, my question is, have you thought about taking the same question and doing it on U.S. data to see what's available? Have you even thought about that?
No. I'm confined to Ethiopian case only.
Excuse me?
I'm thinking of Ethiopian case only.
Okay, all right. And why is
Ethiopian
that?
case only.
And why is that?
Why is it? It's because of data accessibility and because of my interest.
Okay, all right. That's fair. Okay. All right, Mr. Tedeschi.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Daniels and Dr. Denso, just for having you back. I'm so happy just to give you your own suggestion on our topic. devoting time just more. Okay. My topic, as we discussed in our just previous class, is determinants of economic value addition. And my focus is on the finance industry in Ethiopia, just more focusing on the banking industry and the insurance, commercial banks, and just the commercial insurance companies. My issue is, of course, especially the banking sector, reporting from just year to year as they are generating more and more profits, even if the case is just to some extent not as that of banks or insurance companies. They are more profitable for, of course, but they are not like that of the banks for insurance companies because of the risky nature. But of course, the performance measurements for industries, as I told you, the focus is on performance measuring for such industries. Till now, in Ethiopia, we are just measuring the performance of the banks and the insurance companies using the traditional metrics like that of return on investment, return on equity, and so on, including just the return on investor capitals and so on. But I want to see if really these banks and the insurance companies, or in general, the finance industry, is really creating value to the shareholders, whether they are really just whether they are really profitable or not. Just I want to check using this, the economic value added measurements. Okay, Professor Daniel, just may you allow me to share one thing here. I designed one conceptual framework.
Sure. Yeah, I'm getting it for you.
Okay.
Okay, you should be okay.
Okay, good. Okay, is it visible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, very good. This is a conceptual framework that I got from just different articles published previously in especially some other countries. These are my variables. I do have about 5 major variables, as you observe, that profitability, the capital structure, the size of the asset, the growth ability, and just industry returns that I thought they affect the performance of banks that is going to be measured in terms of the economic value addition rather than return on investment or return on just equity. Having this, just the profitability are going to be just measured in terms of earning per share, return on equity, prime operating revenue increasing rates, the case of capital structure, the liability to asset ratios, the current ratio. Okay, sorry, something is disturbing some voice. I think it's from Mr. Desari. Hello?
Yeah, we hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, some disturbing voices there. Okay.
I think we lost him. Okay, I think we lost him. Okay, so let's summarize. So we're at the point now where, you know, it's important for you to define your speaking voice or your viewpoint. Doesn't have to be a formal or finalized viewpoint, but you have to find what is your view on who you are as a researcher, per se. And like anything, when you determine, you know, what your voice is, it doesn't have to be complete or all done in one showing. But over time, as you do more and more presentations, you'll find that you'll start to find your footing, your voice, and what your strengths and weaknesses are. And that's the point of next week. It's not to have everything complete, but it's to begin the process of understanding, you know, how you prepare, how you focus, given your time period, your hour. So everyone has an hour, and use that hour to the best of your benefit to get your point across and to essentially do a little polish, to polish your skills in terms of, you know, projecting and so forth, all those things. And there's all many skills of just to presentate yourself in and of itself of the topic. The topic is another issue, and I don't expect us to solve that in 6 weeks. It's just not reasonable. But it's important to start asking the hard questions, and because those questions will be asked by the marketplace when you go to the marketplace. And so what I would like to do is to use our final free class, which is this Thursday, to come here again and for you to ask any questions that you may have on getting ready for next week.
is requesting Professor Kenneth.
Go right ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Taye is requesting you for admission. Okay, he came back.
Okay, Taye, let me finish up, Taye, and I'll give the floor back to you. So, you know, Thursday is a free class.
Sorry, just I came back. It's because of power interruption.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Taye. Go ahead and finish. Go ahead.
Okay. It is visible, yes?
Yeah.
I think he froze again.
He froze again. Yeah. So yeah. So we'll use Thursday for our free class, and then of course next week we will.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, I think he froze again. We'll have to. So yeah, we'll use Thursday as our free class, and then we'll come back and do our presentations on Monday. So think about again the research question, because that is the yeah, that's,
Yeah, you have to mute him.
yeah, I'll mute him. I'm sorry, but I muted.
It is me. Yes.
We can't hear you.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, I can't mute him either. So he's gone. Okay. All right. So yeah, so let's try to wrap up things on a good note. Ms. Kadish, you're going to lead us off. You're the first one. And I think Ms. Bagala, you're going second. And who's going third? Are we going to try to do 3 in one class, or we're going to do 2? Who's going third? Anybody here is third? Anybody? Mullah, are you going third?
When is the date, sir?
Tuesday. Who's going third? Did we decide? Okay. Well, we'll start off with those two. start off with the ladies, and then we'll decide who's going to go third. And you know, but the key is to, you know, as we're saying, is that, you know, we're kind of this point of you know, trying to ask the hard questions. And so, you know, this whole point of where you fit within financial theory, because unfortunately, that's the paradigm that we're working under, that we have to kind of think of formally. You know, formally, what you're doing is under a formal framework. And that's the concept of seeing how that meshes out in terms of where you are in terms of your process. Dr. Jarrett, you want to add anything in terms of our final comments?
Yeah, what I want to say is just to emphasize one thing, a couple of things. One is, you know, you try to come up with a topic for this class. So as Ken said, it is a process, you know, toward this, it's a process, just a matter of adding one more experience, whether you pursue it to continue into your dissertation or you change it, you can change it. But you may come back to this. You don't know in the future too, because you are in academics. You are going to do research. You may come back to this topic and do it, even if you don't do it for dissertation now. You can keep that in mind. And also, you don't have to limit yourself. You have to be, you know, open to any other possibilities. Like, you know, earlier he was saying to Maskaram, are you going to compare or do on US banks? If data is not available, why not? Okay, if data is available, or if you partner with somebody who can provide the data and do co-authorship, you should be open to that. You don't close the possibilities. So, and the other thing here, Ken is emphasizing specialization. Like if you do on a topic, research on a topic, so is thinking about like you becoming the contact person, a reference person for that topic area. If people have questions, so you are the specialist in that topic area, they can come to you for consultation, whether it is in business or in research itself. So like in the future, other PhD students who start PhD programs there will come to you. Their topic area is in that area. So you will be designated as the banking person or corporate performance, business performance, or compliance researcher. So that is what you should also keep in mind, although you can be a generalist too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and nice to meet you guys again.
Yeah.
Okay, Professor Daniel, please. This is because of power fluctuation. Just may I get some comments from Dr. Demiso?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. As I told you, just these are some of my variables, and the dependent variable is the economic value addition. And this economic value addition is just, of course, these all variables are the accounting database variables. The problem is with the dependent variable, when I measure the performance of banks, whether they are just adding value to the shareholders or not, I'm going to just measure in terms of this EVA. And this is going to be measured in terms of by the net operating profit after tax minus the weighted average cost of capital times invested capital. Or there are some other possible just measurement alternatives, of course, for this economic value addition. But the question is, there is no problem with the net operating profit after tax. The problem is with the weighted average cost of capital calculation. When for this weighted average cost of capital, we need what we call the cost of debt and the cost of equities, because this is the issue of capital structure. And my worry is regarding the cost of equity, especially cost of equity, because the finance industry, as we know, issue more the share to the shareholders than the corporate one. So getting this cost of equity is very, very tough to me. So I need to get some advice from, even if you remember, Dr. Demiso, just I raised this question when you teach us about the traditional performance measurements with the course Advanced Theory of Finance. So I need to get some advice from you. How can I just proceed with it?
I don't think you can calculate the cost of equity with, in a situation where there is no financial market. Cost of equity is market-based, but you may use like proxies. Okay, like what are the cost of equity in other countries for comparable kind of companies or for the industry, and then do adjustment. Maybe if the situation in Ethiopia or for those specific banks are more risky, add some more premium or reduce by a premium or 2%, 3% as the case may be, and adjust that way. And they do also like over a range. What if the cost of equity is so here is a comparable cost of equity for a country where there is financial market, and then the Ethiopian case, you can say increase it by some basis points or decrease by some basis points, and then evaluate over a range. Otherwise, you cannot really calculate cost of equity in the way we discussed in the capital market theory course, where you can calculate based on market data. Does that make sense?
Okay, sure.
But Dr. Davis?
Yes.
Dr. Davis?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Don't you think there will be a lot of variables to play when we do a comparative adjustment of the cost of equity of a peer company or a peer country's company towards that of a similar company in Ethiopia?
Well, that's why you try to match the peer. There may be many variables at play, but if you take the average for the industry, so it averages out. Otherwise, if you want to do an individual company, like we discussed, the beta is not stable anyway. The beta is not reliable. But if you do beta for a portfolio or group of companies in an industry, it is more reliable. So what I'm saying is, similarly, take Egypt, for example. Are the banking industry between Egypt and Ethiopia similar, maybe close? And you take the average. If they have a stock market, they have a stock market, but I don't know to what extent the financial institutions are trading. So from there, if, for example, you assume the industry cost of equity in Egypt is 10%, then for Ethiopia, what if it is maybe 12%, okay, or 8%? You can calibrate around that and test for the sensitivity.
Okay, I think that's a nice place to end up for the day. I want to thank you for your time. So again, Thursday, I will be here at the same time, but there will be no structures. Just chance for you to ask questions. Again, I'm preparing some. I probably put on something like Dropbox all the classes that we take. I recorded most of them, so that'll give you a formal documentation. Then I also will prepare some type of written document of the main points that we talked about, in terms of different types of techniques like GIT sampling and clinical research and all those things. I'll kind of do some things in terms of what might be helpful for you. And then in the long run, if you can, as you're doing your presentation, kind of give me an idea of where your field is. I will try to maybe match with a particular individual that might be helpful if that's what you like. If you don't like, that's fine. And we'll just try to keep the long run some type of communication to help you out in terms of your research process. So that's a nice place to stop for the day. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jara, for participating. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, sure.
Can you tell me something on the topic I said, which is, bank regulation and efficiency of banks, probably with the availability of data on those regards in the US even?
Yeah, I think it's very productive. You probably will look up the topic of it's called X efficiency. Technical change. There's also an area of it's called multi-factor productivity. These are all fruitful areas. In terms of regulation, that's fine. There's been a lot of any type of event is a particular reason to study, whether it be change in regulation or paradigm shift. There's different ways to think about that, but productivity is an area that's not been exploited fully. So the question is, again, back to research to design technique, but I think the concept of X efficiency is a good area.
I thought you talked about tax compliance behavior.
But he was talking about, he gave 2 topics.
Oh, okay.
He gave 2 topics, yeah. So, okay, so thank you for your time today. And guys, enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you on Thursday. All right, bye, take care.
Yes.
Thank you, Demisov.
Bye, both of you.
Pleasure.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you.
Okay,
Have a
bye.
nice time.
Thank you.